Tonight with Fred and Vince, 11 Eastern on CNN.
Tonight, more fireworks in the House Judiciary Committee as the panel expands the investigation of President Clinton. And here's testimony on the impact of perjury. We have a very special guest who testified today here in Washington, Dr. Barbara Battalino, a psychiatrist and convicted and sentenced for lying under oath about a relationship with a patient. And later, we've got a great panel, including Bob Woodward, assistant managing editor of the Washington Post, and defense attorney and Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, who also testified before the Judiciary Committee today. In Miami, the famed defense attorney Roy Black is with us. And in Washington, the former federal prosecutor Barbara Olson. They're all next on Larry King Live. Good evening from Washington. Until recently, the conventional legal wisdom was that people rarely, if ever, get prosecuted for lying under oath in a civil case. But today on Capitol Hill, the House Judiciary Committee heard from two people who'd faced that very predicament. The committee held a hearing on the charge of perjury and whether it is serious enough to warrant the impeachment of a president. One of the witnesses was Dr. Barbara Battalino, who is now under house arrest for lying under oath about a sexual relationship that she had with a patient.
Before April 1998, I was, like most of you, watching or listening to these proceedings. That is, I was a good, loyal, upstanding United States citizen. I worked, voted, paid my taxes with honesty, and was respected by my profession, church, and family. What changed that? One simple lie, misstatement of fact, one falsehood before a federal magistrate. That's what.
Dr. Battalino, how did you get involved in this whole? How did they find you?
How did the prosecutors find
me?
me?
How did we know about you?
That's a good question. The interesting part about it, Larry, is that I was taken off of the civil case for sexual harassment in approximately 1996. And that was after I filed bankruptcy.
What do you mean taken off?
I was no longer on the civil suit, the original civil suit.
For which you were later convicted?
For which I was involved with my being convicted.
Without being convicted, how did the committee get you?
Okay. I think that I got a call from, or my attorney got a call from one of Mr. Hyde's aides asking whether or not I would agree to testify before the committee.
Why'd you agree?
Well, because I think it was important for the committee and for the American people to understand that perjury is a serious offense and that there are indeed consequences that follow if one does break that law.
Now, I know this had to be painful to you, but basically, because a lot of people didn't see it today and they come home at night and they're watching, sure. Give us what happened in your case, what you lied about, what occurred.
What actually happened was I worked for the Veterans Affairs in Idaho in 1991 as a psychiatrist. And one particular patient who had an assigned therapist and had been seeing him for over a year, and also had an assigned psychiatrist, decided that he wanted to have another opinion. And I was new at the administration, so he, through one of the secretarial staff, asked to see me, and I agreed. I saw him for 3 times, and during the course of those 3 times, realized that I was having some emotional feelings toward him, and since he had a psychiatrist assigned to him and also had a therapist, I thought that it would better.
His doctor of record.
Right, and that I didn't want to see him in any capacity at the Veterans Administration. So I asked him to come into my office for a few minutes because I wanted to tell him that. And in the course of that visit, after I had made that clear to him that I was not his doctor, and I had no interest in fitting into that situation. He agreed and asked for my phone number, and when I handed my phone number to him, he made a sexual advance to me and requested oral sex, and I had oral sex with him.
And you liked him and he liked you, and how
Yes.
did this come to a lawsuit?
And that was the only time that we had any kind
Consenting
of...
adults, was he married?
Yes. No.
You were married? No.
No.
Okay. Consenting adults, okay.
Consenting adults.
What led to a lawsuit?
Well, so for the next several months, we developed an intimate relationship. At one point in his therapy with his psychologist, he talked about a relationship that he was in with a professional woman. And at some point, my name came into the conversation. And his therapist reacted in a very negative way. So he called me and told me about what had happened, and he was very upset. And so I expected that I would probably hear about it, which is from my boss, which is what did happen.
Sued?
No. At any rate, I had some difficulties with the VA, and it was a professional differences that I had.
To get to the basic answer, what were you under oath for?
Okay.
Was it a civil case against you?
Yes, Mr.
By?
Arthur
Your former
filed,
lover.
well,
What else to call him?
filed a civil lawsuit against me personally and the VA
Charging you with?
sexual harassment and malpractice.
Which was false, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very complicated.
In the course
Yes.
of this,
Yes.
you testified falsely to what?
It gets complicated because the testimony that they're claiming that I perjured myself in or at, was not in relationship directly to the civil lawsuit for sexual harassment. The government agreed to certify me, which means to pay my malpractice legal fees for October 27th, the day that was in question. And my attorneys at the time suggested that I appeal and have them certify me for the whole term of the sexual harassment case.
Why did you lie?
I lied because I was, well, several reasons. Of course, I was embarrassed, and in my mind, this civil suit was bogus. There was no sexual harassment. There was no malpractice.
So you didn't feel guilt over lying or anything, and you...
Initially, I didn't. I justified it to myself.
As we go to break, here's part of the testimony of Pam Parsons, a former women's basketball coach at the University of South Carolina. Parsons also served time for lying under oath about a relationship she had with a player.
Thank God I could finally say I'm guilty. When you commit perjury, you are the only one that truly knows you've done it. It may take some time for you to get clear with yourself. Anything that I ever denied about myself was what created a spiraling journey through hell.
Larry King Live is brought to you by Post-it Notes. What did you ever do without them?
When you want to stand out. Nothing demands attention like posted flags. Posted flags help you sort, file, organize, circulate, edit, document, and highlight what's important. Stand out with posted flags.
A Pulsar solar watch can run for months with no sunlight at all. Pulsar Solar discover your own star.
Presenting 3 easy steps to the internet. Step 1, plug in. Step 2, get connected. Step 3, there's no step 3. There's no step 3.
Someone is trying to send him a message. So far, he hasn't gotten it. This time, she intends to get through. Bag of Bones, a haunted love story by Stephen King. Available now from Scribner.
If you're concerned about financial security during retirement, listen carefully. The rules are changing. From traditional IRAs to the new Roth IRA, Oldie can help. Oldie will develop an investment strategy for you and help you understand these rule changes. Your investments, your retirement. Take advantage of professional advice and commission savings. Know the facts. Call Oldie, America's #1 full-service discount broker.
We're back with Dr. Barbara Battalino. The panel will be joining us in the next segment, and we'll ask Barbara to remain for a couple of segments as well. As we stay on the subject of perjury, later we'll get to campaign finance and other areas. She was convicted this spring, Barbara Battalino. She lost her job, her medical license, her freedom. She's confined to her home and surrounding areas in San Luis Obispo, constrained by a court-ordered ankle bracelet. And you believe all that was correct?
Yes, I do.
You deserve this for lying.
Yes.
You didn't think it at the time.
Correct.
What changed your mind?
Well, I realized that it was not the right thing, that there are laws, and regardless of how we can try to justify for whatever reasons, whether it be embarrassment or professional concerns, that doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change.
To you, a lie is a lie.
That's right.
And the thing you lied to was when an attorney asked you, did anything of a sexual nature occur in your office at the VA on June 27th? You said no, sir.
Yes.
And that was oral sex, right?
That's correct.
Same thing the president has supposedly.
And it was only one.
Okay, at that time, and you were asked about that date.
Yes.
You could have said no, sir, and then later said, I didn't regard that as sexual from my meaning, right? I mean, you could have said that.
I don't know how I could have said that.
It's sex to you.
Yes.
Right, all sex is sex
Yes.
to you. All right, what do you want us to do with this? In other words, you appear to be very supportive of the Republican position, very not supportive of the Democratic position. Are you saying as a citizen, as a psychiatrist, someone convicted of perjury, this president should be impeached?
I'm not saying that he should be impeached, but I certainly believe that perjury, lying under oath, making misstatements, is a serious offense, whether it be in addition to being a serious offense against God and society. I believe that in this particular case with Mr. Clinton, it's an affront to the people of the United States, because it was directed at times to them in a very forceful and.
You're a psychiatrist, therefore
Yes.
you know the ups and downs of people and the meanings of lots of things. Mm-hmm. And the statement often said is everybody lies about sex. Oath, not oath, everybody lies. How do you counter that?
I don't say everybody does. I think that sex is a common arena for people to have it something personal and intimate, so they
More inclined to lie about it if confronted with a situation.
Absolutely.
So why say it's like, if 40 people are going 50 miles an hour in a 40-mile zone, the cop only stops one, the other 49 did it. Isn't it kind of, do you think, a bit much to have you in jail for saying you didn't have sex in one day? Don't you think?
Well, the sentencing guidelines are very rigid, and I suspect a lot of people aren't familiar with what that is, but the judges are in a bind because of these federally established guidelines. So there's not much choice. I mean, they have some leeway, but it goes by a point system, and if you fall within a certain point system, you're going to have a certain framework of a sentence.
Can you get medically licensed again?
I don't think so.
It's a felony, right?
The felony, right?
Perjury is a felony.
Yes.
What are you going to do?
I don't know.
You can find a house. How were you able to come to Washington today?
We had to get a special court order from the judge that convicted me.
Was that difficult for you today?
It was and it wasn't. I had a real sense of relief and peace that I was able to admit that what I had done was wrong, and felt a very strong desire and need to get the message out that committing a crime, whatever the crime is a serious offense and is an affront to our society as we know it. And we have to abide by the laws of our country and by the Constitution.
So you would say, as a rule,
yes,
anybody, anywhere, under oath, traffic court, criminal division, murder, if you're under oath, you tell the truth.
Yes.
Period.
Period.
There's no equivocation.
No, I don't think so, no.
How about to help a friend?
No, I don't think there's any equivocation.
A child.
Well,
Your daughter's been accused of something. You're going to try to help her.
I think in the long run you don't help the person, even if it's your child. I think that I certainly understand, just as I can empathize with why I justified to myself to lie about that one act of sex that was consensual, that didn't hurt anybody, and that the courts proved was not even a viable civil suit.
Because the president
was
could
dismissed.
say he was protecting Chelsea.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not a good excuse for you.
No, that's not acceptable.
We're going to ask Dr. Battalino to remain with us a while. We'll bring on our entire panel to discuss this aspect. We thank her for coming. She'll remain with us. And Bob Olson, Bob Woodward, Alan Dershowitz, and Roy Black will join us. This is Larry King Live. Don't go away.
Were you tried, or were you tried and had a verdict, or did you plead guilty?
I pleaded guilty.
Okay, but before that, you were aware that you had the option of going to trial.
Yes.
And were you given to understand that if you went to trial, your attorney could cross-examine the witnesses against you?
They never went that far. Wasn't necessary.
No, but did you understand that if you went to trial, that that's what would happen?
Back then, did I understand that? Or today? Let's see. I don't remember about then, but what you're telling me now is they could. I don't know.
You can't cure a cold, but you can sure manage the symptoms with Dimetap Elixir or Extend-Taps. With the power of 2 cold-fighting ingredients to relieve stuffy, runny noses and sneezing. One for everyone in the family. Dimetap. You catch colds, we control them.
Around here, you can't buy a reputation for quality. You have to earn it, the way Wall did. Wall invented the first electric clipper 80 years ago, right here in America's heartland. And they're still the choice of millions of professionals worldwide. Today, you can get that same quality and reliability at home with Wall clippers, trimmers, and shavers, all backed by the Wall family commitment to innovation and value. That's what being a leader is all about. Wall, bringing professional quality home.
There is a prison from which it is all but impossible to escape. Because every day that we choose to consume instead of save, we let something slip away. Investing is not just about stocks or bonds or annuities. It's about freedom.
Patients don't need a friend, they need a doctor.
On December 25th.
Hello. My name is Dr. Phil.
The world will discover.
Oh, there you are.
That laughter truly is.
If you want to be a clown, go join the circus.
The best medicine. Robin Williams.
I want to learn about people. I want to help them with their troubles. That's what I do. But you suck at it.
Patch Adams.
Donner, party of 50.
Based on a true story. Rated PG-13. Starts December 25th.
Welcome back to Larry King Live. We're discussing today's hearing in the House Judiciary Committee on the charge of perjury. With us in Washington is Dr. Barbara Battalino, psychiatrist convicted of lying under oath about a relationship she had with a patient. We're now joined by Bob Woodward, assistant managing editor of the Washington Post and a Pulitzer Prize winner, defense attorney, Harvard law professor, author of Sexual McCarthyism, Alan Dershowitz. In Miami, the famed defense attorney Roy Black, and here in Washington, former federal prosecutor Barbara Olson. Mr. Woodward, what did you think of what Dr. Battalino has said?
Well, I mean, it's a telling, sad story. The question I really have for her is, do you have any sympathy for Clinton? Can you empathize with him, seeing the situation he was in, that he would lie? In fact, maybe almost anyone would lie.
I can empathize with his initial response, yes, because I had a similar response. Your instinct is to protect yourself and your reputation, and if mine was the degree that it was, I'm sure his would be even more, given his position. I still believe that that is not a justifiable excuse to persist in the deception, and that that's where I have some difficulty.
If you were counseling him, what would you recommend?
I would recommend that he think about. I mean, even though I'm a psychiatrist, you don't tell patients what they should or shouldn't do or how they should think. But I would work with him in pointing out that, as I stated today, in the long run, honesty and truth are the best policy.
Even now, it would be a good policy.
Yes, absolutely.
Roy, do you have a question for Barbara?
I do. Now, doctors, I understand you just talked about counseling. You were counseling someone as a psychiatrist, a person who has some type of a mental illness or a mental dysfunction, and while treating that person and talking to them, you got into a sexual relationship with them. Don't you admit that one of the most dangerous things is for a therapist to take advantage of a patient's vulnerabilities to have sex with them?
Excuse me, Mr. Black, but you're under misconceptions. I was not his patient. He was not my patient.
Times.
Excuse me, he was not I was not his physician.
You saw
I was
him
not
three
his
times.
psychiatrist. He had a psychologist assigned to him who he had seen for over a year and a half.
You saw him three times as a psychiatrist.
He had a psychiatrist that was assigned to him.
What is the point?
Well, the point is that she comes in and gives us all this advice about how she's going to counsel people. She's being open and honest about that there's no damage. What she did really is no problem whatsoever. But the perjury was, I find her violation of the Hippocratic Oath to be far more serious than that about her oath to tell the truth.
Ms. Olson may want to defend Dr. Battalino before Mr. Dershowitz moves in.
Roy, I just had to think when you were talking about a patient-doctor relationship. I mean, how about an intern with a boss? How about a young girl who comes to work in an office? Maybe the President of the United States, and he takes advantage of some young girl's enthusiasm.
But why are we having this doctor giving us advice in Congress, someone who's done all these things, who's a convicted felon, who now comes out and is giving us advice on how to run the country?
Roy, I think the point is that we heard for months from the White House that perjury was no big deal. It was something we all winked and nodded at.
They denied committing perjury.
They still don't admit to perjury.
They still deny committing perjury.
Alan, step in. I got to get a break. I want to establish
everyone else knows better.
We've set a record here tonight. The longest program has ever gone without Dershowitz speaking.
Well, we have to step back and ask ourselves, how typical is what happened to this doctor? I think she is the victim of selective prosecution. Perjury is the most frequently committed crime in America, period, and it's the most under-prosecuted, the least frequently prosecuted crime in America. There are hundreds...
If you're speeding and 50 others are speeding,
I'm not making that argument. I'm making the argument there are different kinds of perjury. You know, the Bible says false witness against your friend. If you testify and put somebody in jail or put somebody in the noose, that's the worst kind of perjury. The second worst kind may be policemen who lie and about searches and seizures and convict people who may be guilty. But the least worst kind, and they're all bad, is when you tell a lie to protect yourself. It's embarrassing, it's a lie, it's perjury, but it doesn't compare to the kind of perjury that policemen get away with all the time and that others get away with all the time.
We'll pick up with that in our moments with Dr. Battalino right after this.
Not now today, but when it happened, were you embarrassed about what you were charged or asked to answer the question on?
No.
You were not embarrassed?
No. What I was was manipulating my way around who wouldn't understand what I was doing.
And what a tragedy that a private matter like that had to be considered where you had to manipulate. Dr. Battalino?
I think...
Exactly right.
I think, Ms. Jackson Lee, as I mentioned in my statement, that yes, that was certainly one of the thoughts and feelings that had crossed my mind, that I was indeed embarrassed, and that I was making an attempt to justify that because I was embarrassed and because it was something of a personal nature, that adjudicated my not telling the truth.
AT&T 00 Info, how can I help you?
Yes, I'd like the phone number of the Blue Lagoon Resort. I don't know the area code. Do I need to call Florida information?
Now all you need is one number to get any local or long-distance number. AT&T customers, dial 00. You never need the area code.
Got it. I'm there.
Dial 00 for any number, anywhere. We'll even connect you to your number for free.
Oh, it's magic. You know.
It is uniquely human, the need to connect, to be a part of something larger. Today, it all starts with a .com address.
Hey, Grandpa?
Network Solutions puts more .com addresses into service than every other internet company combined. Want to get connected to the internet? First, get connected to Network Solutions. Network Solutions, the .com people.
Mystic Cliffs. It's a wine that seduces the senses with your very first sip. Mystic Cliffs. From vineyards mellowed by the mists of the Pacific. Mystic Cliffs. And warmed by the California sun. Mystic Cliffs. The legendary wine you'll find when you look for the label. Mystic Cliffs. Marked by a tree atop a cliff. Mystic Cliffs.
We're going to spend a few more minutes with Dr. Battalino, and then the panel will remain with us. Do you feel you accomplished something good today?
Yes, I do.
Which was?
Which was getting the message out that there are laws in this country, and it's important that we maintain a system of laws and expect people to abide by the laws.
Had you ever lied before?
Rarely.
Never under oath?
Never under oath, no.
When you were given the oath?
Yes.
Did that impact you at all? Were you hesitant? If I had a lie detector test there, would it have jumped off the roof? Did it bother you?
I don't think it would have jumped off the roof, but I certainly think that there was an inner part of me that felt badly that I would have to, but it felt that I would have to say something that was not completely true.
It was fair, wasn't it, Bob, to bring these people here, because there were stories that, you know, the White House was saying there were no perjury cases under oath in jail about sex.
It was fair, but if we were down in the White House watching the political operation there, watch the hearings or this show, they would have the martinis and the vodka and the scotch out, because no, wait a minute, just their strategy has been totally successful. We are now debating the doctor's case. You are debating the behavior of police officers, and no one is talking about the issue 1 month before this impeachment inquiry is supposedly going to be over.
They talked a lot about the president today, and they made comparisons. But there is an element of a stunt to this whole thing, too. I mean, you know, Doctor, you were used a little bit. This is not a group of Republicans who generally are sympathetic to convicted perjurers, and you were their darling. I mean, you were their poster girl today, because you could show them that the president was being treated by a double standard.
I mean, first of all, it is true. The White House does have everyone on the defense, but for 2 months, all we heard was that this was a crime no one got prosecuted for. And if they ever got prosecuted for perjury, it certainly was never in a civil case. They're hard to find, people who have been prosecuted, because a lot of people plead guilty. Ms. Battalino, I think she pled guilty because she couldn't afford a trial. First of all, she was guilty, obviously. She couldn't afford a trial. She didn't have what the president did. I'm sure she didn't have joint defense agreements with all the other witnesses that went under. I'm sure her lawyer didn't debrief all the witnesses. So she had to do plead guilty when she told the truth.
So you're
yes,
part
we're
of the
on
White
that
House
issue.
strategy.
Well,
let's talk about something other than...
But for 2 months, the American people thought it was true that this was not a crime. So we did have to do that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Don't stand up, they'll escort you out. But thank you very much for coming. Roy Black will be back with us, so will Bob Woodward, Alan Dershowitz, and Barbara Olson. We thank Dr. Barbara Battalino, who returns to California tomorrow. She's got 3 more months to go, and then you can go anywhere you want, right?
Well, with permission. I still have 6 months probation.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more of Larry King Live after this.
Those of us on the minority side don't get a chance to find out who's going to be called as a witness until the press tells us, or like last night I got a call late about who the subpoenas were going to be. So it's a pretty political atmosphere here. I'm just curious how you guys got to be contacted. Did somebody call you guys about testifying, or how did that work? Did you volunteer? Who contacted you? How did you end up coming before the committee?
I was invited by one of the, my attorney got a call from one of Mr. Hyde's aides asking whether or not I would be willing to come and be here as a witness.
Ms. Parsons, how did that work?
I got
the
a
same way with
call.
you?
I got a call. But also, you know, I heard from the media. I didn't know for sure I'd be here either. They were asking me before I knew, so I know how you feel, and I wasn't...
I'm on the committee, and I don't get so.
And it wasn't like it was some big thing. It was like, could you tell about perjury if you wanted to?
On CNN Sports Tonight, baseball's bad boy says so long to Chicago and signs a $13 million contract with Baltimore. Tonight, 11 Eastern on CNN.
I love great homes, great houses.
And the greatest were built by Rockefeller, Dodge, Ford, and Post. Jack Perkins guides you through the private corridors of power, America's castles.
Brought to you by Fischl's Fine Contemporary Furniture. Since 1921, Fischl's has been providing intriguing ideas for Portland's interiors and patios. Fischl's, located at the east end of the Burnside Bridge.
Every day across America, people are turning on the power of Fox. We make you laugh, scream, and cheer. Now we make you think. Fox News Channel, the most powerful name in news. On cable, 24 hours a day. News for a generation of independent thinkers. Fox News Channel, the name you know, the news you want. Fair and balanced. Turn on the power of Fox. Fox News Channel. We report, you decide.
The Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs, weeknight 6:30 Eastern on CNN.
Roy Black, Alan Dershowitz says there's all types of perjury, but perjury is lying, is it not?
Well, I think so. And you know, I enjoyed watching Alan's testimony today. You know, he's a brilliant lawyer, but quite frankly, I thought even what Alan had to say was basically irrelevant to the impeachment proceeding.
What do you like today,
Alan.
Roy?
Well, what difference does it make if a lot of cops committed perjury, or this doctor had sex with her patient and committed perjury? The question is, why aren't we listening to witnesses about what Bill Clinton did? I mean, we have all this time, apparently, the committee can do these things. Why don't they call in some of the witnesses who have some facts?
Because that's the Senate's job. The Senate will be trying the president if it goes over there. The House will be doing the articles.
No, in the original,
Yeah,
in
but
the
they
gotta
Nixon
look at some
impeachment-
evidence.
In the Nixon impeachment, they had all the live witnesses. Impeachment is not like indictment.
There
To
was no
impeach,
independent counsel.
well, but there was an independent person who was doing the investigation and made a referral much like this. Impeachment is different than indictment.
Are
You
you
have to
saying
really have
that
a lot
the
of
president
evidence.
was helped today? That Dr. Bartolino helped the president today? I'm trying to figure out what you meant.
Well, yes, in a way, because the spotlight is on all the rabbits that the White House releases, and everyone goes and chases them, and we're talking about that.
Why
I mean,
would everyone-
establishing that some people went to jail because they lied under oath or perjured themselves, that is a fact. It's been well established. The White House can say all kinds of things, and they do all kinds of things.
Help me with something, Alan. If I truly, totally believe, all my life, I have always felt as an adult that oral sex was not sex, would I be a liar?
Of course not.
Okay,
And-
well, then that's his defense,
And
right?
not only is it his defense, his best witness is Monica Lewinsky, who on tape, before he ever testifies, says to Linda Tripp, we didn't have sex, we just fooled around. Oral sex isn't sex.
After having numerous conversations with the president.
What's the
Gee, I
difference?
wonder how she got that
But
definition.
Barbara, if he believes that, That's his.
That's preposterous that he believes that.
But
you saw Dr. Battalino's reaction. Oral sex is sex. There's a reason there's the word sex there.
You have to agree with that, right, Roy?
No, he'd never be convicted.
Yeah, but the question in the
A jury
Clinton
would never
situation
buy
is
it.
he was presented with the definition, which did not apparently include oral sex, so he felt technically he was telling the truth, although he admits to being misleading in his answers.
No, that's absolutely true. That awful definition of sexual relations in the Jones case, I mean, if a judge and a bunch of lawyers looked at it, they would say, we've got no case here on perjury.
Why not just, it appears obvious, the committee may impeach, the Senate won't convict, why not just arrest him the day after his term ends and put him on trial?
Because you don't arrest somebody unless you think you have a pretty good chance of getting a conviction, and you surely don't indict the president unless you're pretty certain
What
you're
if
going to
you
get a
think you
conviction.
will?
They'll never get a conviction here. It just won't happen. This is fairyland. This is a fairy tale that they're going to go after him and indict him.
But Alan, you know that Ken Starr is going to indict him. There's going to come a time that Ken Starr is going to issue an indictment against Bill Clinton.
Ken Starr is threatening indictment in order to prevent Bill Clinton from coming and saying things to the Senate and the House which would end this, because no good lawyer will ever recommend that he ever admit anything while Ken Starr is standing out there with a sword of Damocles.
No one is preventing the president from telling the truth. Ken Starr is not preventing.
If you were his lawyer, you wouldn't let him if you knew Ken Starr was out there? You wouldn't allow him to admit to anything?
Okay, you've already answered it for me, Alan. If I were advising the President of the United States, I would probably tell him he has a really important duty to the American people, and he can make a decision. Does he want to take what's effectively the Fifth Amendment and not tell the truth, which is what he's done? He's taken the Fifth Amendment. Or does he want to act like the president and survive and come clean and then take his knocks where he gets them? How much would a prosecutor want to indict and try to prosecute the president if he had really come clean and he had told the truth?
The issue really is not
be the penalty.
Impeachment or prosecution now. I think the real issue is what is President Clinton's attitude going to be in public toward this? When he is asked in an interview or at a press conference, how do you really feel? What are the stations of the cross, so to speak, that you've gone on? I think that's going to be very significant.
Mistake you can make from the very beginning. In my book, I catalog every decision, and
So
he made.
how come he's ahead of the game?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the amazing thing. He should have defaulted. He should have settled the case. He should have told the truth in the beginning. He shouldn't have testified in front of the grand jury unless he was prepared to tell the truth.
We'll break and ask about campaign finance reform and then include your phone calls. Dan Rather will be here Thursday. Don't go away.
Despite the fact that some of our law professors here today think that this matter should all be handled by the courts and the Constitution should just be shoved aside, real America understands that the Constitution is there for a reason, that it does mean something. I don't think these views represent the clarity and the rationality and the common sense with which the real America views these matters, and
May I
I'm
respond
thankful for
30
that.
seconds to what I perceive to have been a personal attack? First of all, whenever I hear the word real Americans, that sounds to me like a code word for racism, a code word for bigotry, and a code
absurd,
word for
Professor. You ought to be
anti-Semitism.
ashamed. That is
When
the
I hear
silliest
you
thing I have
describe
ever
me
heard.
as something other than a real American, shame on you. We may have a disagreement about the merits of these issues, but I would no more impugn your Americanism than you should impugn mine, sir.
You're being silly, Professor. You're being absolutely silly.
You know those amazing little Post-it notes? You know, the ones that make you wonder what you ever did without them? The ones that remind you to do the important things and the even more important things. The ones that make sure that your vegetarian daughter doesn't end up with your son's lunch. The ones that your boss can use to tell you how you did, or what to do next. The ones you can use to start that novel that you always wanted to write, or to make a list for yourself or for someone else. Well, if you haven't noticed, now they come in lots of different sizes. Lined and unlined. Post-it notes, would you ever do without them?
Adrenaline rushing, hearts pounding, heavy breathing. It's almost as much fun as your first date. Royal Caribbean, like no vacation on Earth.
Have a bagel, dear.
There's a hole in it, Marion.
Hey, guys. Sweetheart, why is Scooter in our window?
Big news. 10-10-3-2-1 is better than ever.
It's always been great.
But now 10-10-3-2-1 saves 50% on calls over 10 minutes.
See, Tom, you don't know everything.
50% off, 10 minutes every day?
Every day, 24/7.
What about calls to Canada?
International calls over 10 minutes are half off, too.
That's great, dear. Come in out of the cold.
Hell yeah.
Can't. Gotta tell the Peterson!
Who doesn't want to save 50%?
You already know soy foods are good for you. What you may not know is that soybeans contain components called isoflavones, which can help maintain bone health and the body's natural defenses during and after menopause. Now you can get the natural power of soy in a new way. Introducing Novasoy, a concentrated isoflavone extract. Just look for the Novasoy leaf on your favorite brand of supplements. You knew about soy. Now there's Novasoy, because you know what's good for you.
We'll go to your calls in the next portion. Let's run round robin with the other big issue of the day, campaign finance reform. Roy, what do you make of it?
Well, I think that they want to bring this up because they know they can't impeach him on the Monica Lewinsky situation. So they want to expand the investigation, bring in something else, hope they can dig up a memo and come up with something a little bit more than what they have.
Barbara?
They have. I mean, the committee is now releasing information that they've heard that the Labella memo, who was the prosecutor who Janet Reno had doing the investigation, has allegations that the president committed crimes. And that's one of the reasons.
Because the FBI had also said these are just allegations, they don't have proof.
Certainly, but that's what the impeachment committee is supposed to look at and do its inquiry about.
Does the committee also?
You mean they're supposed to look at proof? That's a surprise.
Roy, hold it. Alan, does the committee also get the memos from those people who didn't want him, an independent prosecutor?
This is going to be a difficult decision. How many memos they get from whom, whether or not people will continue to want to give advice confidentially. Look, I'm thrilled they're getting into campaign finance because I'd love to see them get into campaign finance on both sides, get some reform. That's a real issue. You know, the Filegate was a real issue. Those are impeachable offenses. I wish we'd get away from sex lies and get to something substantial.
Bob, were you surprised they made this turn today?
Well, I think two things. I think campaign finance is a really serious issue. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars that were used probably illegally by the Clinton campaign. It's been pretty well established. It's been accepted that we shouldn't prosecute it, and of course the Republicans did something quite similar. But the idea of 30 days before this is going to end, let's subpoena these memos and make this the issue. I mean, it's really not fair notice, and it tends to suggest that the Hyde Committee is kind of flailing around and saying, well, let's try this, let's try that, and if this one doesn't work, let's run this one up. And it's not a kind of coherent storytelling, which is what you need in some sort of investigation.
Is it a stretch? Barbara.
No, I was just going to say, one of the statements that Bob just made is that the Republicans, they were fined as well, that came out today. But the difference is the Republicans did not have the power of the presidency to bring in the money. They did not have the ability to give away favors, foreign policy favors. They didn't have the Chinese government in there. They weren't giving away pieces of the presidency.
You don't know
well,
that.
there is
She's right on that. There is an abundance of evidence on that. Whether you want to make it criminal or not is debatable.
But that's the danger.
That's right. Many of the very Republicans of the committee voted against Schumer's campaign reform bill, other Feingold's campaign reform bill. Let's get the law changed first. Then we can figure out how to clean it up.
What does your legal gut and experience tell you is going to happen here? It's hard to say experience because we've never experienced anything like this. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I don't think anything's going to happen. I think that
will he be impeached by the House?
I think it's going to be a very close vote. It's possible he may be impeached, but I tend to think people by the end of this process are going to see that it's never going to fly in the Senate, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail. And by the way, I thought there were some great comments today by members of the panel, particularly the one that Alan was on. A lot of people saying, look, it's about time to compromise this with something less than impeachment. And I think a lot of people made some good sense today.
What do you have against that, Barbara? If it appears as is, just on numbers, he's going to be impeached but not convicted, why not a censure?
Because it's wrong. Because it's just basically wrong. First of all, it's just not the way the Constitution laid this out.
But the Constitution didn't lay out a lot of things. I mean,
no, it didn't, but it's pretty...
Didn't lay out traffic speeding.
it's pretty specific about the duties of the House and the duties of the Senate. The Senate is the trier. The Senate's the ones who does the trial.
If he's not convicted, that's it, done. No censure, no trial, it's over.
Well, you know,
You would abide by that.
sometimes on technicalities, criminals go free in a court of law too. But you have to follow the constitutional provisions.
You agree?
Well, if an unconstitutional tree falls in a forest and nobody complains, has there been a violation of law?
Well, they can't censor
there
it.
has been. There has
Well,
been.
that's the question. And if
I can
there's a
answer it.
deal, if there's a universal deal to wrap this thing up with everybody ending this thing, including the end of the investigation of Kenneth Starr, that's who's now under investigation, including a commitment that the president won't be indicted, it might be worth it for the public.
What's wrong with that, Bob?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's
It is an ending, isn't it?
People are going to decide that in Congress, and events are going to determine it. Watching it, what strikes me is so many Republicans who were adamant about Clinton's behavior, and we have on the record essentially now lots of Democrats saying the president broke the law, but it's not impeachable. But we find Republicans coming along and saying, well, let's move this on, let's not take it seriously. It's almost as if they are behaving like Bill Clinton and saying, what does the latest poll tell us? Why? You know these Republicans. What happened?
You're one of them.
We're one of them. Well, I think the election, I mean, I think it shocked everyone. I think no one felt that the American people were going to re-elect the party of the man who has all of these allegations of impropriety against him.
But they didn't re-elect
because they re-elected.
him.
Yeah, they did. And we,
That's
I think we
misreading
felt as
of
though
the election, I believe.
well, maybe it is, but it's what happens. So I think the Republicans felt as though we've got an election coming up in 2 years. This is the House of Representatives. They're always headed for the next election. That's one of the good and the bad about it. So I think they decided, if the American people are this angry and this fed up, what am I doing? And it's a very tough thing to stick to principle.
Let me get a break and we'll pick up with Mr. Dershowitz, include some of your phone calls as well. The attempt to get a convicted killer back from France. That's the subject tomorrow night. Dan Rather on Thursday. Don't go away.
The members of the majority, Republicans recognizing that there is little interest in moving forward on impeachment based on the limited matters set forth in the referral, are now seeking unilaterally to expand the inquiry without any basis in fact or law in a rather desperate attempt to breathe new life into a dying inquiry.
Now for Diskette World Travel News. Notebook computers are traveling lighter with built-in Super Disk drives. Only the Super Disk drive works with both regular floppies and 120 megabyte Super Disk diskettes. Floppies everywhere are thrilled because a built-in Super Disk is 2 drives in 1, and other drives are on the way out. We can save a little. Super Disk can save a lot. Together we can save the world.
Super Disk from Imation. Get it in Acer notebooks.
Great timepieces are built to run forever without replacing batteries. But only one of these is smart enough to run forever on any kind of light. Echo Drive from Citizen. Live at the speed of light.
Tonight on Late Edition Prime Time. The latest on today's impeachment hearings with Judiciary Committee members Mary Bono, Robert Wexler, and Bob Barr. Late Edition Prime Time. Tonight, 10 Eastern on CNN. Wednesday on CNN Newsstand. Social Security. Is it the best value for your retirement dollar?
If given the choice, would you get out of Social Security?
Visit one county that did, and life has never been sweeter. Then, hate your job? These guys don't.
It's everything people say it is.
Here at software giant PeopleSoft, the boss says,
And if you're not having fun, please quit.
Wednesday, 10, 9 Central on CNN Newsstand.
On the comment, but I do want to include the public. Eustis, Florida, hello.
Hi, my name is Laura, and I have this question. Since the scandal broke, we keep hearing the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors. High crimes being like treason, bribery, misdemeanors as small as not paying a traffic violation fine. Why do we keep hearing this when perjury falls right in the middle of the spectrum?
Doesn't it?
First of all,
Yes.
the Constitution says treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Misdemeanors doesn't have anything to do with traffic tickets. It's misconduct. It has a historical meaning at common law, and most scholars think it meant high crimes of state. And that's why Nixon was not impeached for cheating on his taxes, which is perjury.
By the way, you told us during the break you would have joined the FBI director and the lead attorney in recommending an independent prosecutor.
Right. We're the only country in the world in which a political appointee of the president makes charging prosecutorial decisions. Eventually, we're going to have to break up the Justice Department and understand that you can't have political appointees making these decisions.
He's probably right. How can he make these?
And that's why independent counsel.
You appointed me.
And we just have
you
to
can
move
fire me.
toward a system of separating out the
You
prosecutorial
can't break
function
up
from
the
the
Justice
political
Department.
function. Yes, you can.
We have three branches of government. You can't create another one.
This
I'm
is not-
sorry, you
no.
have to amend the
Oh,
Constitution.
no, you have created another one.
We have
the
our fourth
independent
branch.
counsel.
You're right, and that's
Ken
why it's
Starr.
going.
Chicago, hello.
Hi, I'm curious about the testimony we heard today from the convicted perjurers.
Yeah.
Isn't it irrelevant to hear from people who have committed perjury and been punished when the question, and it kind of gets to the previous caller's question, the question really is whether or not perjury is an impeachable offense, not whether or not Joe Q. Public has been punished for committing perjury. I guess I just haven't heard the answer yet of whether or not...
That's a good question.
Larry, I think that question was answered by Judge Leon Higginbotham. He said that whether to impeach the president, it's totally irrelevant to hear from a basketball coach from South Carolina who lied and got convicted of perjury. It's really no comparison between the two. We're dealing with impeachment here, not with an indictment, not in a trial in federal court, and not in a conviction. If the issue was
germane to a criminal trial of the president.
Okay, but if the issue was, should we forgive Bill Clinton so he can never be indicted and we give him immunity forever because he's the president, then we would be comparing the same things. Right. So this is entirely different.
But Roy, I think what happened is sort of what Bob was saying earlier, is the White House sent out all these rabbits, and unfortunately the American people believed all the White House rabbits that perjury wasn't really a crime that anybody cared about. So the Judiciary Committee felt a duty to tell the American people by showing them people convicted of perjury in a sex case.
But Barbara, instead of doing that, and the generals and admirals were talking about the criteria for disciplining people in the Army, as if somehow you impeach a president for ungentlemanly conduct or conduct
they were treating him like he was a soldier.
Right. We'll be back with our remaining moments with our panel. It's a shame we couldn't get people to throw them out. It's been difficult. We'll be right back.
We are not confined to the Starr referral. That was the debate we had on the floor with the resolution that empowered us to review the material from the independent counsel. Mr. Boucher and the Democrats wanted a very narrow scope, and we wanted a wider scope, and we prevailed, and so we are not bound by the parameters of the Starr referral.
Woo! I actually got in.
You broke into personnel.
Yeah, these are salaries of every person in the company.
Look, this senior VP makes about half as much as this senior VP. I bet he doesn't know that.
Sure he does. I just emailed everybody in the company.
I've just got this burning love for food. But sometimes it just doesn't love me back. Heartburn surging up to here. What my doctor calls acid reflux. When I get it, he says, get Gaviscon.
Only regular Gaviscon forms a soothing, protective barrier to help keep stomach acid down, where it belongs. Mylanta can't, Hepcidase C can't. Only Gaviscon can.
So my heartburn doesn't come back to burn me.
Gaviscon. It helps keep acid down, where it belongs.
What will happen in Cuba after Castro? What will replace television? Is an arthritis cure around the corner? One thing's for sure, opportunities abound. And every day we send a search party of 35,000 to find them. Care to join us? Let's get to work. Solomon Smith Barney.
Mount Vernon, Illinois, hello.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
My question is to Mr. Dershowitz.
Go ahead.
My question is that if the Mr. Clinton didn't have the top lawyers in the country, do you think he would have answered the questions the way he did in court? And if not, do you think he would have perjured himself in court?
I think he had one of the worst lawyers representing him in the Paula Jones case. I think it was a disgrace that the case wasn't settled, that he didn't investigate, didn't find out whether Monica Lewinsky, in fact, had a sexual relation to him, let him testify falsely without...
Alan, it really is not fair. Now, wait a minute.
Alan,
I'm sorry. I stick to that.
Roy.
I know he never spoke to Monica Lewinsky.
I just wanted to say...
He never did his work. He told me.
Roy.
Well, you believe
Alan has said...
I believe Bob Bennett who told me that.
Roy.
Yeah, I just wanted to disagree with Alan on this, and he has it in his excellent book as well. I have to say that Bob Bennett is an outstanding lawyer.
Absolutely.
We don't know exactly what went on between the attorney and the client, and I think it's very unfair to just blame the lawyer for everything that happened.
Let's run this around. We got a minute and a half. Is it ever going to end, Bob? Is this just eternal?
Well, I was encouraged by the news that maybe Ken Starr is going to retire sometime in the spring. I'll believe it when I see it. I think the issue is everyone's talking, us, people on the Judiciary Committee, and the real interesting question, the participant in this we have really not heard a soulful discussion of is Bill Clinton, and that's going to be determinative of how this
We have a minute left. Frustrating, isn't it?
It is frustrating because I think back to what the standard was in the Reagan administration when investigations were going on by Congress, and the idea that John Conyers and others would say that criminal offenses are not impeachable, that's a standard that the Nixon hands down had.
Might we never hear from Clinton?
We'll probably never hear from Clinton on this. It's probably going to end when the Y2K bug destroys all the files in Ken Starr's office.
Roy,
before then.
What's your scenario? We got 20 seconds.
Larry, this afternoon, if you watch the proceedings, we had some real statesmen giving testimony, and most of them said, look, it's time to resolve this in something short of impeachment. The man should be punished, but it doesn't rise to the level of impeachment, and I think cooler heads should prevail instead of Democrats versus Republicans only, and there should be a resolution made.
We thank Dr. Barbara Battalino earlier, and Bob Woodward, Alan Dershowitz, Roy Black, and Barbara Olson for the last 45 minutes for being with us tonight on this edition of Larry King Live. I'm going to tell you what's coming up tomorrow and next after this.